Sonia Arrison, author, futurist, a woman who's never far from controversy. Sonia has just come out with a very provocative new book entitled 100 Plus, How the Coming Age of Longevity Will Change Everything, from careers and relationships to family and faith. Sonia, welcome to TechCrunch TV.
Thanks, Andrew.
Well, Sonia, at some point in this interview, I'm going to ask you how old you are, so you can think about that one for a moment. Not yet, though. What are you arguing in this book? Are you really saying that we're all going to be able to live to 100 plus this century?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think that we'll be able to live to 100 plus during my lifetime, which is shorter than a century at the moment.
And is this a scientific revolution? Is it a biological one, a genetic one? I mean, how is all this happening?
It's really, I think of it as a technology revolution. So I think it's something that your viewers will be really interested in. You can think of it in this way. Just like a computer program has ones and zeros, we now know that the human body is made up of code as well. It has the A, C, T, and G of DNA. And we've sequenced the human genome. Now we're working on reverse engineering it. And there's an entirely new field of do-it-yourself biologists and the open science people. And just sort of like there was a homebrew club in the early days of the computer, there's now that type of hobbyist culture, hackers of biology, if you will, that's really getting interested in being able to engineer the human body. So biology has become an engineering project. And because of that, biology is moving so much faster these days. There's an entirely new field called tissue engineering, which is very exciting and has had some really powerful effects for humans already, not lab animals, because so often we hear about great things happening for mice. And that's wonderful for the mice, but not so great for humans. But when it comes to tissue engineering, scientists and bioengineers have been able to grow brand new human organs for real humans who needed them. So for instance, a windpipe was grown for a man who had cancer. They took out his cancerous windpipe, put in the new one that was created with his own adult stem cells, and now he's cured of cancer. He was only 36 years old too, so I mean, he had his whole life ahead of him now, and that's only one example. Other organs have been grown, like bladders and blood vessels, and scientists are working, bioscientists are working on creating other organs like hearts and lungs, and of course heart disease is the #1 killer in America. So if we were able to engineer a new heart to be able to replace that when it breaks down for people who get heart disease, that would go a long way towards allowing people to live longer and healthier lives.
So this is kind of Tim Ferriss on steroids, to excuse the pun, right? This is a decentralized world in which we're all hacking our own body. It's not a top-down industrial model.
That's right. That's right. It's sort of the personalized medicine model where everybody has a slightly different way of repairing themselves because everybody has a slightly different code.
And how will it work in economic terms? How will it reflect changes in the healthcare economy and the ecosystem?
Right. That's a good question, actually. I mean, because you could look at it from two different perspectives. You could say, oh, wow, well, if we're going to be constantly replacing body parts, I mean, maybe healthcare will become really expensive, right? Even more expensive than it is now. But that might not quite be the case, because if you think about how things work today, when somebody has heart problems, they tend to go to the hospital multiple times for many different problems, and we fix them a little bit, but we don't quite fix them, and they keep coming back, and that's very expensive to have the ambulance and all the people who are caring for them every single time. And so if we, in the future, if we know that somebody has heart disease and it's a really big problem that requires fixing the entire heart, we grow them a new heart, replace it, and that's one trip to the hospital, not 10 or 15. So it could be cheaper.
I mean, will it mean that we will have perpetual open-ended insurance? Won't insurance be so prohibitively expensive that no one will be able to afford it?
No, I don't think so at all. In fact, I think it may be the case that the technology, it may become cheaper to repair humans than it is now, because we don't really repair people. We just fix them up a little bit until they break down even more. And when we get to the point where we're actually repairing people, then they're healthier longer, and there's less risk involved with that.
Well, I need a lot of repairs, so I'm very enthusiastic about the revolution that you're describing. How will it change everything? You say that it'll impact on our careers, our relationships, our family, and our faith, or perhaps our lack of faith. What are the most fundamental changes to the human condition that the revolution you're describing will change?
Right. So in the book, I take the premise that we'll be able to extend our health expectancy to 150 years. And by that, I mean not just our lifespan. We won't just be living to 150 and have this huge period at the end of our life where we're very ill. Health expectancy will be extended too. We'll be healthier for longer periods of time. And because of that, things will look a lot different. We'll be working longer. We'll be healthier longer. We'll be energetic longer. That means we'll be doing all sorts of things longer, things that we do now. So for instance, getting married, right? I mean, can you imagine you get married at 30 and you have a life expectancy, health expectancy of 150 years? That marriage is going to be much longer than you would expect today, of course.
Are you married, Sonia?
I am, yes.
How long have you been married?
5 years.
Can you imagine being married 50 years? Wouldn't that be a bit much?
Well, I have a great husband, so I would be okay being married that long.
It would be great after 50.
I'm sorry?
I mean, I'm sure it's great after 5 years, but after 50, I'm sure you'll be sick to death of it.
Well, maybe so. And I think in that case, society would have to come up with various ways of dealing with that. I mean, maybe there would be sunset clauses on marriage. Maybe we'd come up with an entirely different definition of what marriage means. How long does a marriage typically last? Maybe those kind of things will have to change, I think.
I know you have an interesting take on whether or not, 150-year-old men will be marrying 20-year-old women. What's your position on that?
Right. So I considered that in the family chapter of the book because, you could imagine in a world where people live to be 150, you could have a 130-year-old man marrying a 20-year-old woman, and that would be a pretty big age gap.
Not that big from the male point of view, right?
Well, how I tried to answer that question, the question is, will we see more of those kind of pairings in the future? And I dug through the literature, both in terms of what happened the last time we doubled our life expectancy, because life expectancy in 1850 was 43 years. Now it's 80. We've already doubled life expectancy. So I went back and said, okay, well, what happened last time we roughly doubled life expectancy? And it turns out that you didn't see more pairings with large age gaps. And then I dug into the psychological literature, and it was like, well, how come? Why not? Why don't we see big age gaps? And from the sociological point of view and psychological point of view, the explanation is that we tend to want to pair up with people who are more like us. And one of the things that makes somebody more like us is that they're in the same age cohort. So they grew up with the same kind of music, and they grew up in a certain cohort, so they share those many different things with us that somebody in another age group wouldn't. And so that's the explanation for, one of the explanations for why you wouldn't see large age gaps. The other reason, because of course, sometimes those marriages are motivated by youth and beauty. So the other explanation is that in the future, not only will we be healthier and more energetic, but I think we'll also look better.
Well, how old are you, Sonia? Let me guess. 21?
Oh, no, I'm 150. No, just joking. I'm 39.
And so, well, you don't look it, but though we're on Skype, so maybe Skype makes you look better than you actually are. What will this mean, though, for you in this revolution? When you're 120, will you still look the same? Will you still have blonde hair and sexy skin?
Well, the hair is easy to do, of course. Anyone can have blonde hair. The skin, I think that technology surrounding cosmetic issues in skin will get better and better over time. We've already seen DARPA develop something called ReCell, which is for burn victims at the moment, where they can take some of your own skin cells, clone them, and then literally spray them back on you. And that's in use right now. I can only imagine that that's going to get better.
So you can buy that spray? Can I go to my local Walgreens to get that?
Not yet. But I don't think it'll be long before it'll be in use in the cosmetic industry.
I hope I haven't been making too much light of this, because it's very entertaining. At the turn of the 20th century, Aldous Huxley, English writer, wrote a book called Brave New World, in which he imagined the world that you are laying out. But I think Huxley had a much darker version of what this would look like. You seem to be unrelentingly optimistic. Is there anything about this world that we should be worrying about? Could it turn into a brave new world where where life is extended for so long that we become incredibly bored and boring?
Well, I suppose that's always a possibility, but then there's always a way out, isn't there? Most people, I find, don't tend to have enough time. There's never enough time in the day. There's never enough time to do everything you want to do. And I think that just as we filled up our time when we extended our life expectancy from 43 to 80 years, I mean, we're much busier now, actually, than we probably were back then, or at least we have more things to do, and there's more entertainment. And so there's much more variety in our lives now than there was back in 1850 when we had less time. So I think that it won't only be technologies to extend our health span that continue to grow. Of course, it's going to be other technologies as well, like virtual environments and other things that you can't even predict right now.